Hey Peculiars, it's me, Amanda the Peculiar Brunette, and today I wanted to do a book review of Utterly Wicked by Dorothy Morrison. Utterly Wicked discusses the kind of like darker aspects and kind of challenges the idea that everything must be all love and light. According to Dorothy, this book is for those folks who have what it takes to become the things that go bump in the night and aren't afraid to go there. So let's jump in. I did start the Peculiar Book Club, and this was the very first book that we read. I know everyone's always looking for good witchcraft books to read. If you don't want to be a few months behind, sign up for the Peculiar Book Club. I'll put a link down in the description below. Who is the author Dorothy Morrison? Well, Dorothy lives with her husband, Mark, in New Orleans. She was a Wiccan high priestess with over 20 years of experience, like practicing and teaching witchcraft. She also founded the Coven of the Crystal Garden in 1986. Now, she's written many other books as well, including The Craft, A Witch's Book of Shadows, Everyday Magic, Spells and Rituals for Modern Living, Everyday Moon Magic, Spells and Rituals for Abundant Living, Everyday Sun Magic, Spells and Rituals for Radiant Living. You can also find Dorothy Morrison on her website, dorothymorrison.com. Now, I say that she was a practicing Wiccan because I was listening to an interview that Dorothy Morrison did on the Purple Mystic podcast, episode 6, where she said, quote, "Well, yeah, I was Wiccan for a long time, and then I decided the religion did not work for me. I'm more of a spiritual person. But even with Wiccans, what they tend to miss is that in order to be a good practitioner, you have to achieve balance between the mundane world and the spiritual world. And the whole idea is to walk evenly between the two." So what is Utterly Wicked about? So Utterly Wicked is a book for spiritual practitioners who are interested in curses and hexes. Now, it includes over 100 spells and rituals to help you like protect yourself and align with these intentions, right? I just picked this for our very first read for the Peculiar Book Club because I constantly see it recommended on online witchcraft communities, and I was interested in what it had to say. I purchased my copy on Amazon, and most of the Patreon members had also already bought their own copy, and they just hadn't had a chance to read it yet, so we were all really excited to get started. And every time I've written a book, I really haven't written it for the general public. I write books to keep my information all in one place. So almost like it becomes your own personal grimoire you're sharing with the world? Exactly, because it's mine. So let's discuss my key takeaways from Utterly Wicked. This, hoodoo, is in no way, shape, or form a religious system. It's magic, plain and simple. At its origins is attributed to derivations of the magical practices of the Afro-Caribbean people who were once enslaved in the United States. However, she never mentioned that hoodoo is a closed practice that requires community invitation. And I think that was a bit problematic. To quote Chantel Sauls in the article Faith Between the Lines, Black Woman Shares Look into Hoodoo Practice. I will make sure to link that article down below. According to Chantel, quote, "Hoodoo is for African Americans that are direct descendants of slaves," end quote. Dorothy's guidance around cemetery dirt invokes Oya and Orisha from the Yoruba religion. And to be honest, she doesn't really provide a lot of context into Oya other than just saying, oh, well, she's the queen of the dead, and doesn't really go into much more, or even like Orisha worship. I just would feel very uncomfortable invoking a deity that I hadn't worked with, I wasn't that knowledgeable about, and am culturally appropriating somebody else's beliefs. And I think it just really dismisses the voices of those who do worship her. In another area of the book, she talks about dream catchers without discussing their Native American origins or like significance. And dream catchers hold a lot of spiritual meaning for the Anishinaabe people and other indigenous communities. And without discussing any of those sacred traditions or beliefs, it just felt a little hollow. And I wish that she had left those sections out, because I think the rest of the book was really well done and I liked it. But yeah, ick. I really enjoyed Dorothy's explanations on the differences between a curse and a hex, right? So according to her, a curse uses only words or kind of like intense emotions like anger or jealousy, or can even be as simple as like a look, like with the evil eye, right? But a hex is more of like a structured and deliberate spell or ritual that would also involve tools, which is not to say that emotions aren't involved as well, but they're kind of just like more structured and deliberate. I thought this was really interesting and could be helpful for practitioners who are new and looking for kind of like different ways they can approach their magic. Dorothy's section on cemetery dirt did not really resonate with me, specifically because she's calling on Orisha deities, working with Confederate soldiers and or murderers. So that was not a vibe to me, personally. But I did enjoy the section where she discussed magical dirt, and how like gathering it from certain locations like banks or courthouses or flower shops, and then using that spiritual energy in her spell work. And she also had really good ideas on like how to store the dirt, tools that you can use, and like fun and creative ways that you can use that dirt in your spell work. One of the great things about dirt is that it works of its own accord. You don't have to cleanse it. You don't have to charge it. The fact that it's a part of the earth and thus as old as creation gives it stability. So this chapter was laid out so freaking well, and I just thought she did such a good job in here. She kind of talked about materials to use, how to personalize and activate the dolls, whether you want to dress them or not, and how to dispose of them. She also included the origins of curse dolls and binding spells, which I love because I always love a good history lesson. I think it's important that we do discuss the origins as much as we know, because, you know, it's always important to learn something at the same time. However, I think she took the whole thing to the next level when she introduced the idea of using an 11-inch fashion doll and stuffing the cavities, which was like, I'd never thought about stuffing the cavities of these dolls. I mean, that just opened up so many fun and clever creative ideas to use, that like to personalize these for ourselves. And I just thought that was a great idea. I think, you know, Poppets are normally synonymous with cursing and hexing, but she kind of flipped. I mean, she does talk about how to use it for curses and hexes. Obviously, that's the book. But she kind of flips the whole thing around by talking about how we can use them for good intentions and positive outcomes too. Like for healing spells, and maybe like manifestation spells. Like, I just thought that was so great. And it was a really popular and talked about section in the book club. And I completely see why, because it was really fun and it was laid out really well. Like, props to her on that. Okay, now let's talk about what I loved about Utterly Wicked. Okay, I have two main things that I was just like obsessed with. So the first thing is why you shouldn't return the energy to sender. So this is a popular technique I see probably most often talked about on TikTok, especially when it comes to like egg cleanses. But there's all kinds of like protection spells and stuff where I see that if someone has sent negative energy towards you, that when you're doing a spell, you're going to send that energy back to them. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. So Dorothy argues that energy isn't inherently good or bad. It just takes on the intent of the witch or spiritual practitioner who's using it, right? Since energy never truly dies, she encourages witches to transform it and repurpose it into something that is good or beneficial to them. This is such, I never thought about it in this way, and I just thought it was really great. And I think a lot of witches and spiritual practitioners could use this information. I think it kind of changes the way most people think about energy. Her swifting ritual, it's on page 134, is such a brilliant method for redirecting energy, and I'm completely obsessed with it. And she turned something like some negative energy that could be harmful to a witch or practitioner and turned it around into something positive. And I just thought it was so great. I think it's worth buying the book just for that section. Having learned this early on, you can imagine my reaction when someone else's teacher announced that negative energy should always be returned to sender. But that's just an effort in futility, and it's certainly not going to fix the problem. Because if both practitioners have their shields in place, all this is going to do is cause a game of psychic volleyball. The energy is going to bounce back and forth until someone gets tired. So as somebody who loves crafting, I think that's why I specifically resonated with this section. Dorothy talks about how to immerse the curse in plain sight, and she specifically cited Italian witches for being really good at this. And one of the things I liked a lot was she talked about, like, if you're doing like embroidery work or making a quilt or something, how you can immerse the curse within this and then give it to your intended target as a gift, and they'll always have that on them to create. I mean, think about how great that is. So for example, she used the example of making a quilt and then gifting that quilt to your intended target, and if they put that on their bed and they sleep under that every night, I mean, that curse is gonna that's genius. I never even thought about doing that. And what a great idea, because they're sleeping with that every single night. And that is going to be such an effective curse that they just use over and over and over. Okay, now what are some things that I think Dorothy could have improved upon? I've already covered the cultural appropriation stuff, so I'm not going to do that again. But it kind of left me wondering if there were other problematic elements that maybe I missed or wasn't like knowledgeable in. And it kind of, I don't know, it left a bad taste in my mouth because it made me kind of worried about that. I also think that she didn't do a very good job of using very inclusive language. For example, there's a witch's bottle spell on page 144 where she suggests different materials based on gender. Quote, optional for women only, a tissue containing a few drops of your menstrual blood. Optional for men only, a tissue containing a few drops of your semen. Yikes. Honestly, it just would have been very simple for her to use inclusive wording, and it bothers me that she chose not to. Most authors who've been in the business a while will tell you that a bad review sells your book. Because what happens is people see these bad reviews online and they go, ugh, really? And they go buy the book to see what's wrong with it. All right, so what's the peculiar verdict? I gave it 4 out of 5 pentagrams. I do think that this book had a lot of really good, unique information, especially the energy, like the swifting ritual. I just thought it was really great. And Immersing the Curse and the Poppets. Oh, those were just so great. I loved them so much. I had to give it a 4 out of 5 pentagrams. However, I did take 1 star off because of the cultural appropriation issues and the non-inclusive language. I hope you found this helpful. Make sure and sign up for the Peculiar Book Club if you would like to be able to vote on the books that we read, and come and chat with us in the Discord because it's really fun. Like, we don't just have like a basic book club. Like, it's fun. We go in depth with it. So come check it out. I hope that you found this video helpful. Lots of love to you. And remember, as always, stay peculiar. It's for those who have what it takes to become. It's for those folks who have what it takes to become the things that go bump in the night. Okay. It's for those folks who have what it takes to become the things that go bump in the night. I can't get